A global namaste to you all. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, wherever you're watching us today from. My name is Nishit Kotak. I'm here with the team from Hindu Academy. As you know, we meet here on Facebook and YouTube every Saturday, 2 o'clock UK time. For those of you who are new to the broadcast, welcome. Let me just briefly explain the format of the broadcast. We run for about 50 to 55 minutes. And the way we start off is we have a focus topic, which is based around a video. Then we have a little discussion around it. And thereafter, we open up for general Q&A on Hinduism. Now, how can you get involved? Number one, you can follow us on youtube.com/Hindu Academy or facebook.com/Hindu Academy. And in the comments or chat area, just put in your thoughts, your comments, your questions, and we will pick it up from there and answer them as the show goes on. The second thing you can do is make sure that you invite your friends and family. We have a large group of subscribers on YouTube, about 110,000 plus. But the conversation could always be better when we have new people onto the weekly chats. So please do feel free to invite your friends and family. Now today, we're going to be discussing about the avatars. And so for that, I've got a little video that I'm going to share. Bear with me as I bring it up. And then we will have a discussion around this.
I never really understood the concept of the avatars and about Kalki and everything. I don't really understand what that's all about. Yeah.
There were 4 friends who went in the forest for a walk. 4 friends, best of friends. And while they were walking in the forest, they came across some nice music. They could hear nice music. Let's explore. Where does this music come from? So they went in the direction of the music. And they saw a wall, a very tall wall, maybe something like 8 feet tall. And they said, the music is coming from behind the wall. Let's find out what is, maybe there's an orchestra. Let's see, it's divine music. Very sweet and attractive. They must see that music. Let's find out. So they saw the wall, and they said, let's go behind the wall. So they went round, all 4 of them went round. The wall was circular, means they went all round, they couldn't get inside. The wall was like a circle, like this. And the music was coming from inside, and they could hear it from outside. And they were very curious. They said, we must find out what is the music. Oh dear, what to do? They're all curious, they want to find out where the music coming from. Then they said, now how do we get over the wall? Oh yes, there's a trick. They say, if 2 of us put our hands together, we can ask the third one, you go near a wall and you put your hands together, and you can ask the third person to step on your hands, both of you holding your hands, and the person can just get support and just climb over the wall. So they put 2 hands like that, and one of the friends said, okay, they pushed him up. He went on top of the wall. He looked at the other side of the wall, and without looking back at his friends even, he just disappeared, went away. They said, oh, idiot. We asked him to find out what is behind the wall, he just disappeared without telling us. And we just helped him climb up and he just disappeared. No good to us. No good. They told the third one, now we are sending you, now tell us what is behind the wall. So again put the hands together, and they put the third friend to go over the wall. They gave him a hand to push him up, and the third friend went up. He went on top of the wall. He looked at the other side of the wall and went, wow, this is good stuff here. And he started singing and dancing on the wall. The people said, tell us what is it. Oh, no, it's so lovely. Singing and dancing. He said, no singing, tell us what is it. He kept walking up and down, singing and dancing. Now this is not enough. And suddenly after some time he disappeared as well. This is no good. This fellow is no good either. He just started singing and dancing without telling us what is behind the wall. Not much good to us. Then there are only 2 left. So the third one said to the fourth one, I'm sending you up. Don't do this to me. Tell me what is behind the wall. I want to know. So the last one gave a hand to the third one, pushed him up. Now this third one went up, and he looked and went, He wanted to sing and dance as well. But he just said, no, I'm not going to sing and dance. He just straddled the wall. Straddle means sit on the wall with one leg on this side of the wall and one foot on this side of the wall. And he straddled it. He was going, And then he told the fourth one, look, there's something here. I can see God here. And I'm going to now put my hand down and pull you up so you can see God too. So he gave his hand to the fourth friend and lifted him up. He said, there is God here. Now the story is very important. This is what he's telling us about all the different religious people we come across. First of all, in the Hindu religion, you find people who went into deepest of meditation, discovered they are the spirit, the Atman. And the experience was so dynamic, without making any fuss, without telling anybody. They just go into deepest of meditation and merge in God. That's the first friend. Without making any comment, he just goes, boom, disappears into God. These are the great rishis of India. Without making any fuss, without making any noise, without making any ripples, without beating drums, they just disappear. These are the first kind of people, rishis, ancient and modern. They don't make any fuss. We don't even know them. They just disappear. The second friend who went up and started running up and down the world singing and dancing are the saints, the sant, the saints. They get a vision of God, they go wild. Meera and Tukaram and Tulsidas and the wonderful, they go wahayapi, and they start dancing up and down, writing poems, singing songs, composing the Ramayana or whatever. And they keep walking up and down, singing and dancing, and this is how they make the rest of us aware there is something there. They've seen God. That's why they go, yippee! Good for them. And they make us feel there's something there. In God, this God business, there is something in God business. But the fourth person, the third one who went up is the most important. Because he can see that, but he's not there to disappear or sing and dance. He says, come, I will take you with me. Boom. He pulls the whole of humanity, all of mankind, saying, come, you want to God? I'll give you God. Not that I can see God, I can show God to you. That's what they mean. These are very special people. And these people we give special name. They are not sant, not saints. They are avatars. They are able to take whole of humanity to God. Not for themselves, for the whole of human race. They can say, we can lift you all. So whenever you hear of all these marvelous avatars, say Buddha, say Ram, say Krishna, this is what they are depicting. These are super personalities who cannot only experience God for themselves, they can give God to others. And they are so powerful that the Hindus say, look, you can't even call them human who are telling us to find God. They are actually God on earth. God coming down to earth to play with us. That's why the word avatar. Avatar means coming down to earth. So this is why we give a special title to these personalities who are not able to see God for themselves, but have the power of showing God to others. That's why when we pray to Ram or Krishna, we are opening up our doorways of finding God for ourselves. That's why they are powerful, powerful person. That's why we give them this special title of avatar. They are able to lead whole of humanity, thousands of people, to experience God for themselves. They are able not only to experience God for themselves, but all other people to experience God. That's why they are very endearing personality. And we say we are happy. The Hindus are happy to say, you can think of Rama as an avatar, you can think of Krishna as an avatar, you can think of Buddha as an avatar, you can think of Christ as an avatar. So we're not saying only Hindus. We say there can be avatars in other nations too, in different times of history.
There we go. So what a wonderful video to explore. Now, 1, 2, 3, and 4. We've got the rishis, we've got the sants, we've got the avatars. And Manishka, what was number 4?
There were seers to start with, and then there were the saints, and the third one was avatar.
Yeah.
Those are only 3, I think.
So what a fabulous thing it is to be in the presence of an avatar, I would imagine. And so good afternoon, everybody. And so, folks, prepare yourselves for the next 40-50 minutes while we go through this discussion. And we've got Manish Bhai, Sita Ben, and Vijay Bhai on the call today. Welcome, everybody. I'm going to hand over to Manish Bhai to carry on with the rest of this Q&A session for now, while I attend to the questions online.
Wonderful. Thank you, Nisit Bhai. Yes, very interesting topic today, very relevant to the celebration of Salah Janmashtami. We just celebrated, had a wonderful time, went to temple as well. So, yes, as Jay Bhai explained, avatar is someone who takes other people as well to the other side. and gives that experience. But if we think on that terms, and if we think about the animal avatars, are they doing the same thing, Vijay Bhai? If we think about Matsya avatar, Kurma avatar, Vara avatar, and even Narsimha avatar, what's your take?
No, absolutely. I mean, I think we have to keep this in mind that in Hinduism, we are not different from nature or animals. We are, in many ways, although we are very special as humans, we are in many ways also equal in the sense that we are all avatar, all Atman, right? So why not? I mean, if you can get inspired by trees or anything, then of course they will, inspire you to, to try and see the other side. So I know we have stories like the first Matsya avatar, I believe, was to save somebody from a flood or something. So again, we have similar stories. So again, for Hindus, having a animal avatar, it is as normal as human avatar in that sense. We see no difference because they are all divine beings. So no problem there. I think the main thing to keep in mind is that although we talk about the Purans having 10 avatars, which is a Puranic story and is very popular, there is no rule that there's only 10 avatars. I'd rather go with the Gita's, chapter 4, I think chapter 4 was 6 and 7, I believe, I can't remember now. When it's, yada yada hi dharmasya. Whenever there's adharma, when people have need, avatars come and pick them up and help them to come up again, right? And show them the divinity. So I think avatars can come in many forms in ancient times, in contemporary and present times. So avatars are coming all the time to help. And if you, as Nishit Bhai mentioned, if you ever get a chance to see an avatar, then you're very lucky. You get somebody to hold you and pull you up, right? So avatars are also modern and ancient in that sense. I mean, of course, currently celebrating Krishna Janmashtami. So the 10 avatars we talk about are very popular, no doubt. But let's keep this in mind. Avatar is one who descends to help others and take them up as well. And that's why we say, reestablish dharma, same thing. Why do you have dharma? To help people to come up again and show the other side. So by and large, it's just a different way of, it's play of words. Ultimately, it's a similar kind of thing. Yeah. Sita?
Yeah, and I think you covered it amazingly. I think what the mythology around the 10 avatars is really reflecting the Hindu belief in the idea of evolution as well. So it's basically saying that all of us have been through this process of going from, sort of very simple organisms becoming animals and then eventually becoming humans. So that's essentially one of the things that this 10 avatar story depicts. And I think really what it's trying to do is it tries to infuse the idea of spirituality into all of these wonderful stories. The idea that God comes down to earth and protects humanity and, gets rid of all of the demons and all the bad things that are going on in order to, look after the good and protect the good. And I think we have to see it more as an allegory. That's my personal point of view. Like, how can a fish help you to see God in that sense? So you have to think about it logically and see it as more of an allegory that we like to infuse the idea of God into every aspect of the living kingdom, whether it's animals and humans and half animal, half human, all sorts of things that we've gone through. And I think as Vijay Bhai said, the beautiful thing is we are all essentially Atman and we are all empowered to essentially become avatars ourselves. So whatever we can do in our seemingly small and limited way, if we can lift up our fellow human being, then we are sort of behaving like avatars. And the wonderful thing about Hinduism as well is that we have giants, spiritual giants, who are not just restricted to the story of the 10 avatars. We've got, giants throughout the ages in Hinduism who continue to revive and refresh the message of Hinduism and make it much more relevant to the modern world. And they kind of come in a way that addresses the current issues of the time. So, I mean, going back to the idea of Ram, for example, we discussed last week, Ram came at a time where there was a great deal of immorality going on in the kingdom and people were lying and cheating and stealing. You needed somebody like Ram to say, hang on, what I say is my word, is my bond. And if I have said it, I'm going to do it. And that really sets a really wonderful example for the rest of the kingdom. And when Krishna came along, it's a very different story, because when you look at the messages of Ram and Krishna, they seem contradictory, because Ram says, follow the rules. Krishna says, don't follow the rules. And you think, what's going on here? Because the idea of Krishna is breaking the rules, breaking from tradition, breaking from all all of the sort of, the normal conservative way of doing things, because that was what was needed in society at that time. It had become very rigid and stagnant, and you needed somebody to blow away the cobwebs, and that's really what Krishna did. So if you look at all of the avatars that we have within Hinduism, they all sort of address the need of the time and really uplift the whole of humanity.
That's wonderful to hear, Sitaben. So one question that arises with this avatar theory is, how do we know if someone is genuine avatar and someone who is not? That is one big question, because if we had a book that listed all the avatars, then we can take them off. But without any guide, it's very hard. And even now, some person in India or somewhere will claiming to be avatar. How can we be sure about this? Sitaben?
Well, it just reminds me very much of what Dad used to say. He said that the real sort of litmus test of somebody who is genuinely spiritual is that the words that come from their mouth will be original material. It'll be something that has not been heard through previous teachings and sayings and all the sort of philosophies that we are used to. They will come up with the most beautiful analogies. They will come up with a whole new insight into how we can understand the nature of reality through the idea of spirit. So that's the real sort of litmus test, that this person is really genuine, that they're not just rattling off what other people have said. What comes out of their mouth is original. And that really reminds me very much of the idea of Ramakrishna, for example, because prior to his time, there was, a real sort of scattered vision of Hinduism. There was all sorts of different gods and goddesses, and nobody knew how to reconcile them. But amazingly, at the time of Ramakrishna, they had the idea of ice. They had ice coming into India at that time. And Ramakrishna used the example of ice and water to reconcile the whole of Hinduism, which is absolutely beautiful. And nobody has done that in the history of humanity. This idea that a simple thing like ice and water, the idea that, the same thing can be sort of perceived and have different forms and shapes, is beautiful, because that really helps synthesize and bring Hinduism together. Rather than it being scattered and confusing, it becomes reconciled. So he used an example from his own time to help explain the beauty of Hinduism. So I think that's the real sort of test, is that they will come up with the most original material. So this example of ice and water is not in the Vedas, it's something original. So I think that's also a real test of a spiritual personality. Vijay? Oh, you're on mute.
No, that's very true. I think by and large, what you see is that when you have these great saints who have experienced God for themselves, the experience is so intense. The words that come out are not book learning. Remember, it's not book learning or listening to sermons. It's something they experience from inside themselves, and that in itself you can see when they speak. I mean, I listen to a lot of, I joined this Raman Maharishi group on WhatsApp, and some of the things that Raman Maharishi said, you never think, how can somebody think like that? The thing is, there's so much love, intense love pouring out from what he's experienced, and he wants to share this. And the way they say it is with so much genuine kind of, genuineness, and so much love, and so much eagerness to pull others as well. The material is such that it's simple, amazing, and you just know that this person actually has felt that divine. You don't have to. It's very easy to see. If you go, some people will just quote books, so and so scripture, verse this, verses that, so and so that. They may be very clever, but you can see, no, this is not really the material that will take you up. What takes you up is something you experience, intense experience, and it's, I know this. How do I pass it? And the stuff they say is really unique. So that's all I can add to that. Yeah.
That's wonderful to hear, Sitaben Vijay. So this Avatara theory is mainly from Vaishnava's Srimad Bhagavatam, what we've taken as. But there is avatars of Shiva as well, and there's avatars of Mother Goddess as well. So Charmaine's question is why, interesting one. She's saying, why have we only had male avatars? What's your take on this, Vijay?
Okay. All I can say is, I think actually Sita, who made a really interesting joke a while back, was that, if you look at by the not avatars, also a lot of saints, all the prophets are all male, right? I think Sita actually mentioned that the reason why the old male is because God is actually a woman, and men need to be told what to do, right? So, anyway, taking that, taking the joke aside, the thing is this, that look, I think primarily for Vishnu, because Vishnu is seen as a male deity, 10 avatars are seen as part of Vishnu. So there's of course Mohini avatar as well in the story of the Samudra Manthan. So we have one of the avatars of the female deity. But I'll be honest with you, I think partly it's to do with a patriarchal system worldwide, which has been lasting for a long time. So there may have been a lot of great, women seers, but they never came out of the fore. The society was structured like that, which in a way is changing now. Thank God, because of great, even today in modern India, we have got great seers. We had Anand Mahima, we have now so many other saints, women saints coming up who are intensely spiritual. So I think the world is changing. But even talking about the avatars of Devi, I know that there's so many, far more avatars of Devi than ever been of, of male gods. And you see them in every kind of village you go to India, there's different forms of mother goddess. And they all believe that they're actually avatars in their own right, in that sense. But I think because Vishnu has been popular since over 1,500 years, his avatars have become far more popular. But Hinduism is a very fluid system. As people change, different gods come to light, different beliefs come to light. So I hope in the future we have a lot of female avatars who come to the fore and they're noticed and the message is actually taken as well. Sita?
Yeah, no, I think you've covered it amazingly. I love that joke.
It's your joke, I remember.
And actually, I think maybe possibly the reason why this idea of Vishnu is the one who comes down to earth repeatedly, is because his role traditionally is seen as the preserver. So it's his job to come down to earth repeatedly, and he's a man, so a lot of his avatars are male. But that doesn't mean that we forget the whole female divinity side of it as well. And I think it really reminds me very much of Parvati and what Parvati actually symbolizes, because she doesn't have any extraordinary features at all. She doesn't have loads of arms. She doesn't have this. She doesn't hold this or that. She's just an ordinary woman. And I think the beauty of that message is so incredibly powerful, that essentially Parvati is the manifestation of every woman. Every woman is a manifestation of Parvati on earth. So what better way to depict female avatars in the form of see yourself as the mother goddess on earth, and all of womankind are considered to be avatars. I think that's a beautiful message.
That is so wonderful to hear, Sidhavin. One thing Jaybai mentioned is Buddha and Jesus Christ are avatars as well. And many Hindus would disagree, especially because they think, they are converting people to Buddhism, or these missionaries are working hard to convert people. And this goes against his teaching, goes against the Hinduism. How do we answer this question? Could they be avatars, and how do we reconcile all these problems? What do we do about it? See that way.
I think because Hinduism is so incredibly broad, it doesn't restrict the idea of avatars to be just within Hindus and just within the Indian subcontinent. We like to recognize spiritual giants wherever they are around the world. And Buddha, actually, he was from India. His religion was actually Hindu, and he founded the idea of Buddhism. And the beautiful thing about Hindus in India is that we never go around trying to stifle somebody who is a spiritual giant. Buddhism was never trampled on or undermined at all. It was just allowed to flourish, and it flourished not just in India but across the whole of Southeast Asia in the most sort of gentle way. It just sort of suffused without any bloodshed, without any force or violence. It's a beautiful religion, and we like to recognize that. And with the idea of Jesus, I think Hindus and Indians, we love the idea of Jesus, but we may have a potential issue with some of the scriptures and saying that this is the only way. But the idea of Jesus is beautiful. And actually, I've been reading a lot of Swami Vivekananda's works, and there is a great deal of sort of similarity and synergy in some of the things that Jesus has said. For example, I and my Father are one. Because essentially that's Advaita Vedanta. That is the idea that I am God, I am the Spirit. So many beautiful things that Jesus has said. And we like to recognize and acknowledge that. And I think it's wonderful that Ramakrishna actually had a vision of Jesus, because for the first time in humanity, we have a spiritual giant coming across or encountering another spiritual giant from another time, another continent. Like, how beautiful is that? So I think it's really sort of saying that no matter who people are, where they are from in the world, if they are spiritual giants, we want to recognize them for what they are. Vijay Bhai?
I think that's very true. We have to keep in mind that Sanatana Dharma is a universal term. It's not a term only for Hinduism. As a matter of fact, the term Hinduism in many ways limits us because, as you know, it's an external term given to people of the Indian subcontinent, which compartmentalize them on a particular geography. But what Sanatana Dharma itself, if you explore the word, there is no, there's no sectarian kind of meaning that word at all. It's universal. In that sense, I think we have to keep in mind that actually the spiritual giants everywhere are part of Sanatana Dharma in that sense. One thing to mention about Jesus, I mean, I have been reading a lot of political history about it. There's a very interesting book about, like somebody called Catherine Nixie on the Darkening Age. If you get a chance, read that work. And you see that what Jesus said and the political angle behind it is far, far greater than what Jesus says. Jesus never said, oh, only believe me or you go to hellfire. That all happened in the Council of Nicaea about 200 years afterward. The Nicaea Council, when they formalized the Bible, that's when they put all these extra stuff to keep people under control. And the political damage, that is immense. But I think to put it on Christ, whose message was very genuine, is actually a wrong thing. But quite often when we see these missionaries coming to convert people in India, we get very angry and say, look, Christianity is bad. It may be the political angle and the future. I mean, that's why we had all these fights, right, in Europe, where the Martin Luther, 100,000 people were killed when Martin Luther was, trying to separate from the Catholic Church. Same when, English church separated. There's a lot of, all that is political angle, using a figure for the benefit, not listening to his message exactly. So we have to be very clear. A lot of these kings, I remember the interesting thing was the emperor Constantine, who was the first emperor of this Christendom. He actually refused to accept the idea of reincarnation because he goes, you know what, I've done so many bad things, I will never get to heaven. So he actually in many ways influenced the idea of true life scenario. You'd be surprised. At least more than half are going for reincarnation before the Bible was finalized. Because the emperor's power, he said, no, I want true life because I want God to forgive me for what I have done. I don't want to stay for. So there's no political angle. But I think the message of Jesus, I think, is very genuine. Again, I agree with Sita. If you read Swami Vivekananda's works, what Swami talks about is his message directly, not the Christian church. Remember that. He talks about what Jesus exactly said. That's what Vivekananda focuses on. When you see that, then you say, okay, this person is in a different class altogether. Yeah. So we have to keep this kind of distinction in mind. The movement behind it and the original person who it was, right? Manish Bhai, sorry.
Wonderful answers, Vijay Bhai, Sitaben, very well put. One more question, since Ramakrishna has come up. Ramakrishna says one who was Ram and Krishna before is now Ramakrishna. And then Swami Vivekananda calls him Avatar Varisthaya. Could we, I mean, is it any way, can we qualify who is the supreme avatar and who is not? Is it even possible, or, what's your take on it, Vijay Bhai?
Okay, I'll tell you something interesting. I come from Swaminarayan faith, and they say the same thing, avatar na avatari, means avatar or avatar. I think the thing is, because the latest avatar you have, right, he gives the latest message in the latest words. So while we revere the ancient avatars, no doubt, but the message, I mean, all you could read Ramakrishna, I mean, Manish Bhai, I've read as well, Ramakrishna, Ramakrishna's Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. It's so sweet and so simple, right? You don't need a brain power to think about it. Every metaphor, every simple verse, right? I've read it now twice and it's like stunning. If you ever want to feel spiritual, just read that. In the simplest of terms, you elevate it. So that is because the time when Ramakrishna came, his message was so contemporary, even now is so valid. So you would say he's the avatar of avatars because the message is so relevant in our context, in this time, in time frame. So of course you would say that. And I think there's nothing wrong in saying that. Maybe in 20 years time, somebody may say the same, but but that's okay. In Hinduism, we allow you to say all this stuff. So I'm a big fan of his message. So that's what I can say. Sita Ben.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with you, because he's come with the most relevant messages that's most relevant to our current time, because Ramakrishna came when there was a real need to reconcile Hinduism. It was just lying completely scattered. Nobody really knew how to reconcile all the various strands, but he was a personality who was not able to just experience God in one particular way, just seeing the Mother Goddess, and that was it, because that's where most saints and prophets, they stop. But with Ramakrishna, you have this amazing array where he is able to see God in such a variety of different ways, all the various gods and goddesses of Hinduism. But not just that, the whole Advaita philosophy is also reconciled through his life. The idea that, through going through the deepest of meditation, he is able to identify that you actually get to the same destination. The fact that you could even try other religions, such as Christianity and Islam, and get to the same destination. Nobody in the history of humanity has been able to demonstrate that. And that's why his message is so incredibly relevant today in a very sort of multi-faith, very globalized world, where there is such tremendous fighting in the name of religion. His message really needs to get out there that actually there is absolutely no need for all of this fighting. It all reconciles and becomes one with the same spirit.
That's so wonderful to hear, Sitaben Vijay. And with that, I think we'll give this topic a rest. We covered it well, I believe. We take a next question from a viewer. He's asking, what does Hinduism teach about the nature of God and ways to show devotion to God? Sitaben?
Yes, so in Hinduism, we've got lots of ways that we can show devotion, lots and lots of ways that we can show devotion to God, because we've got 330 million deities that we can choose to build a relationship of love with. So what amazing variety and choice we have. So obviously the most popular ones are Ram and Krishna and Shiva, Mother Goddess. And you choose the deity that suits your temperament and that you feel personally most attracted to. And there are a whole variety of ways that you can show devotion. You can meditate in front of that image of God. You can do puja, you can do worship, you can go to the temple, you can read scriptures and bhajans, sing bhajans about that particular form of God. And all of these exercises are there to help us build a relationship of love with our particular form of deity that we choose. And we're so used to building relationships with the humans around us, like our parents and our children and our friends and all of that. So really what Hinduism is saying is that superimpose, choose a relationship like a friend. See God as your friend, see God as your child, see God in such a variety of different ways, because we understand what it's like to build a relationship with our family and our friends. It's saying superimpose that onto God and love God for the sake of God. I mean, there are a whole range of even different kinds of bhaktis or different kinds of devotion within Hinduism as well. And some of them include, loving God for the sake of curiosity, knowing, what's going on here, or loving God for the sake of wanting something in return. But the most supreme love is called Parabhakti, and that's asking for God's sake alone, and not asking anything from God. You don't want any kind of transaction with God. You just want God for the sake of God. And that's the ultimate sort of conclusion of Bhakti Yoga. And the beautiful thing is that when you get to that conclusion, you are so in love with that particular form of God that the conclusion is that you are no longer able to see yourself as being separate to the object of your devotion. And that's essentially where you realize that you are the spirit. The thing that you're loving is actually yourself. It's already within you. So having all of these images and things is a way of sort of projecting our love onto something that we love, but then eventually realizing that whole love was inside us in the first place. So it's a beautiful journey. Vijay?
Yeah, it's an amazing question. I think just to add to what Sita said, somebody asked Swami Vivekananda the same question in America, how many gods do you believe in? And his answer was very simple. As many gods as there are people, basically. So everyone see gods in their own particular style. I think one thing to keep in mind also, God can also be seen apart from just as a, Advaita idea, that Dvaita idea where God is separate, but can also be seen as, a spirit, universal spirit, devoid of, kind of a human qualities, because God is universal and all life has got, soul, including animal life, flora, fauna. Sometimes people see God not only just as a image, could also something beyond that. But yes, as the main thing is, of course, our sense is limited, so we need something to focus on. And although you hear other religions saying that, oh, we don't believe in God with form, or they actually do it. They always use an image like a cross, or some scripture. So we all need to focus. And one way, that's one of the most beautiful ways to build your relationship with God is to have something to focus on, and try and be one with that object of yours, something which is divine and godly, and then make progress from there. So that's what I can add to that, Manish. Yeah.
Wonderful. We'll take the next question. The question is, why do people pray? Simple and easy. Vijay, why do people pray?
Well, people pray because you want to get closer to God, and more than that, closer to who you truly are. It may sound, sometimes people may think, oh, prayer is just a waste of time, or it's boring or mechanical. But if you're done with really proper focus and discipline, it reveals a lot about you. It also improves your character, because when you pray, you focus, you discipline yourself, you can do it at particular times. And when you pray, not only you show love for God, even inside yourself, you feel better and you see your true divine. So it's a two-way relationship. So prayers are very, very powerful in that sense. So yes, if you pray, please keep on praying. Yes, Sita.
Yeah, I think prayer is one of those things that, we think that, there is a God out there who can help resolve our human condition, can help us get out of suffering and all of that. But I think the wonderful message that we have within Hinduism is that, through this exercise of praying and, thinking that there's an external being that we are worshipping, essentially we are sort of invoking that strength within ourselves to sort of get through any kind of difficult situation. So it's really sort of invoking that inner strength that we didn't know that we had through this process of praying and having, a relationship with a deity or a God. We're actually invoking that strength within ourselves to deal with our human condition.
Wonderfully put, Sitaben. We take a rapid fire round. Nisit Bhai, do you want to come on for rapid fire, please?
Sure. Thanks, Manish Bhai. So we do have a series of quick fire questions. So I'll start one by one. Bear with me one moment as I pull up the questions. So the very first question, and this is like a recap of Hinduism. We got loads of new members here today. So they've been asking a few questions. So Vijay Bhai, what is Hinduism? To the person who is new to Hinduism or looking from the outside in, how would you define Hinduism?
So the term Hinduism itself, of course, is defining the beliefs of a particular geographical area. But the true term for Hinduism is Sanatana Dharma, which means trying to make sense of what we are, what's the relationship with the universe, God, and us. Trying to make sense and trying to find that answer is what Hinduism is. Yeah.
Wonderful. Sitaben, I'll ask you the next question, which is, what are the fundamental principles of Hinduism?
So the principle. Yeah, so it's based on the experience, not just of one prophet, but on hundreds and thousands of prophets throughout the ages who continue to refresh and revive the message of spirituality. And the beautiful thing is they all come to the same conclusion. So they're presenting the idea of spirit in the most relevant and current way to the modern world.
Many rivers leading to the same sea. Manish Bhai, here's one for you. So which are the main texts of Hinduism?
Yes, the Vedas are considered the supreme text for Hinduism, and the conclusion of the Vedas were the Upanishads, and Srimad Bhagavad Gita is considered the main text of the Hinduism. So if most Hindus would have Bhagavad Gita in their house.
Super. So Vijay Bhai, if I come back to you, you mentioned that there is probably one God per person. We have so many gods. But then which are the main gods in Hinduism?
So I would say the main gods is Vishnu and his avatars, Shiva and his avatars as well. And then also we have Parvati and all the Devis. And I would say the other big belief in India is the idea of Ganesh worship. And Kartik as well. So in many ways, people say that the Shiva family has cornered half the market of India because, well, I think I would say these are the main avatars, but there are quite so many in India. I mean, there's a lot of tribal worship, Vanvasi worship. But I would say that Shaivites, Vaishnavites, Shaktos, and Ganpati, as I call them, and then Kartike believe Murugan, kind of main, I would say. Yeah.
Super. So there's quite we got a carved out niche for Shiva and his family.
Yes.
So now, when it comes to Hinduism, what is the way one can go around carrying out worship and rituals?
Yes, so the wonderful thing is we are very flexible. There is a whole array of rituals, there's a whole array of worships, but you pick and choose the way that suits you the best. For example, for worship or puja, they recommend that you do it at dawn or dusk, because that's when the atmosphere and environment is peaceful. And there's a whole set of procedures which you can choose to follow or you can choose to omit. It depends on your temperament and your personality and your time limit. So lighting a lamp, lighting an incense stick, ringing a bell. There's a whole load of things which I won't go into now, but yes, it's wonderfully flexible.
Superb. Now, this is a general open question to the three of you, which is, so what is the history of Hinduism? How did it get started? How did it evolve over the years? And how has it grown into today, the mature system that it is, a way of belief, a way of life? So maybe Vijay.
Here actually, if you read Sita's book, the very first Sanatana Dharma is trying to resolve the human condition, to try and find out and make sense of who we are. If you take that as a kind of basis, then Hinduism started since the dawn of humans. So the earliest Hindus who believe in personified forces of nature, that you find the Rig Veda as well, the earliest belief. And if you look at the Neanderthal man or even forget Homo sapiens, Homo erectus, they were worshipping the forces out there, trying to make sense of what is the relationship with nature, earth. So the earliest beliefs of man and how it evolved as time went by, since being scared of external forces, once we harness them, we went inwards and look at who we are inside, what's our link, and how are we divine. So Hinduism started from dawn of, that's my understanding of dawn of humans, to this day, we are still evolving to this day. So then earliest beliefs, Sahitas, and rituals, Upanishads, and now all the great ideas we have today of modern Vedanta philosophy. So there's no start in my way, and it's evolving all the time. It's a living religion. Sita?
Yeah, I think you've covered it beautifully. So the whole idea of religion in Hinduism is the idea of trying to search for that unity and the diversity that we see around us. And essentially, we were very lucky on the Indian subcontinent because we had a wonderful sort of environment, nice warm temperatures. We're not fighting off cold and wind. So our attention, rather than focusing on the external world, went inwards. And through the process of introspection and meditation, we have prophets from ancient times right through to modern who have discovered the most beautiful, incredible insights which form the foundation of Hinduism and what it's all about. Manishpur?
Yes, just wanted to mention some eras that are normally mentioned when we talk about history. So the first period, we would call it Vedic period, where this idea of nature versus worship of forces of nature is there. And that evolved into, that led to in a kind of Buddhistic period. And the Buddhism came as a reformist tradition. And after Buddhism, almost all over India, Buddhism spread. And after Buddha came Sankara with his idea of Advaita Vedanta. And after Sankara, this idea of worshipping, images of God, and this came. I think Vijay can elaborate on those ideas further, I think. Vijay?
Yeah, well, I can really say it's quite a big topic in that sense. But yes, I think Hinduism has faced a lot of challenges in its thought. When it is kind of going astray, people like Buddha have come and put us again in straight line. So it's been evolving all this time. I mean, after Shankara, Ramanuja came, then Madhava came, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So all these, and of course, Ramakrishna Paramas at the end. So Hinduism, in that sense, so beautiful. It's a living religion. Message for the contemporary times. When when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came, people were so not disciplined, all, following things as they want. So with the idea of, chanting, continuous chanting. So get them again to the street and love for God. So every time something happens, there's some great saint who's born to bring message together and get together. I mean, Ramakrishna Paramas is so critical. I think we don't realize, if you look at the history of India, That time, with the Brahmo Samaj, Arya Samaj, they came at that time. And they're really veering towards, to be honest, towards the idea of monotheism. And Ramakrishna goes, no, that's that's not allowed. That's not right. All beliefs of India are equally valid. And the fact that he said that gave a huge boost into India. And then, of course, Swami Vivekananda carried the message forward. So in many ways, so many great traditions of India were saved. Even now, there's a big hoo-ha in India that there's a big attempt to destroy India's diversity. I don't think it'll be possible to ever do that, because human nature is like that. Even if you look at the monotheist belief like Christianity, as they grow bigger and bigger, they break apart. That's the nature of man, right? You don't want to follow the norm. It may look like for a while you want to follow the crowd. Eventually you break, the crowd breaks into bits. It's human nature. So Hinduism actually not only understands it, actually endorses that idea as well. So we are very beautiful in that sense, right? So Manish,
Wonderful.
Super. So the next question I have is, and this is not necessarily linked to the questions I was asking before, but for Hinduism, we do find that the mandir is a very special place. Why is that so? What makes the mandir special?
Yeah. Okay. I mean, yeah, mandir is actually, when you go to mandir, partly is, of course, is a very spiritually charged place, because of the fact that there's a lot of people, spiritual people come together, they think together, they think of positive things. It's a very, very spiritual place in that, a very charged up place. So mandirs are very special because you also get the community together to worship in a communal manner. It may sound strange because Hinduism gives a lot of flexibility to us to pray on an individual manner, which is really good. But sometimes it's also good to get people together in a kind of communal area. So in many ways, it's like when I go out on holiday, I go everywhere. When I come home, I feel, so good, right? You feel same thing with temple. You may worship God everywhere, but when you go to a particular temple of your choice, you feel so nice and relieved. I mean, I've seen that when I go to India, the main temple we have. Whenever I go when I go there, I feel spiritual. When I go there, I feel extra spiritual. So the atmosphere and aura is such that it gives you an extra boost on that. Asita?
Yeah, I think you've covered it amazingly. I mean, if you look at the philosophy of Hinduism that everything and everywhere is divine and spiritual, then what's the point of having a mandir? But as I said, we are human and we have our limitations. So we need somewhere to go to focus our energy and attention on thinking about higher things. It's even like a ritual, the fact that you go to the temple whenever there's a festival or, every time in the week or whenever you choose to go, that you say, I'm going to dedicate this time to thinking about something higher. And you may want to, build a relationship of love with God through that activity. And there's a whole load of different things that you can do at the temple. Like you may choose to circumambulate or go around the central image of the deity. You may want to ring the bell to announce your presence to God. And it's just that wonderful sort of community feeling that you get at the temple, which you don't get at home. So there's a real benefit to going to the mandir for sure.
Fantastic. Now, Hindus, the behavior of Hindus towards each other is more likely influenced by values and qualities that we have, in Hinduism. But my question is, how can faith help to contribute towards the cohesion of a community? How can we all stay as one?
Yeah, see that?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. Unfortunately, the way the world is, religion is not seen as a point of unity. It's seen as a point of diversity. It's seen as a point of conflict, and it's something that you avoid talking about at dinner parties, religion and politics, because they're both controversial. And it's sad that religion is put into that camp of being seen as being a controversial topic, whereas actually the reality of it is that they are all leading different paths leading to the same unity. And although, we talk about the different prescriptions of different religions, and when you sit there and analyze it, they sound completely contradictory to each other. There doesn't seem any rhyme or reason, any sort of cohesion to them. But my dad always used this beautiful example of, imagine there's a group of people and they're all sort of standing in a circle, and they all want to get to the center of the circle. And somebody is standing at a particular point in the circle and they say, my prescription for getting to the center is by taking 2 steps north. And then you look at the person who's directly opposite, and he says, well, actually, my prescription is to go 2 steps south to get to the middle. And then they discuss their prescription, and they seem completely contradictory to each other. And actually what you do is, rather than sitting there and analyzing and discussing, just go on your path, go on your chosen path, go 2 steps north, go 2 steps south, and actually you will find that you find greater cohesion, greater unity, just by being one-pointed in your path, rather than sitting there and criticizing or analyzing somebody else's path. Just go ahead in your path, and you'll start feeling that great sense of unity that comes from within, because we are all essentially linked at the level of spirit. Vijay Pai?
I think that's very true. I think one thing to keep in mind, what the idea of faith, the thing about faith is this, that it can be very strong, and it's, in a way, it's good. You have to have faith that there's something out there, right, to pursue. If you have no faith that there's no more point. You might just live and life like animal life and finish. As Jay Bai says, eat, drink, and burp, and that's it. So you have to have some sort of faith, some focus. But I think one thing we have to keep in mind is that if you have very strong faith, please give space for diversity as well. That's very important. And yeah, one thing is right, Sita mentioned. I know that in many companies there's a rule. You don't talk about religion when you go out together. They actually have a rule in the rule book. You'll be surprised. Because someone might just get offended. So, but the thing is that I think you have to have diversity and also faith that actually we are all going that journey. And don't put somebody else down for a different pathway. So keep that faith in mind that we're all okay in the path we follow. Yeah.
Super. So one of the things they teach in Hinduism is talking about sannyas, or being single or a bachelor, so you can remain focused on your journey towards moksha. But I can tell you one thing, that with a population of over 1 billion, we all believe in the concept of family. So the question today is, why is a family such an important part of the Hindu life? It's the exact opposite of what they teach us to do.
Yeah. So we have both streams, right? And this is why we have the 4 ashram system we have, which is the norm. It's not the exception, the norm. We have brahmacharya ashram, grihastha ashram, where you live the family. Family is grihastha ashram is one of the most important of the ashram, because it's not raising a family, it's supporting others, others as well, like supporting the sannyasis, supporting the teachers who are teaching us, supporting education. So in effect, you have a situation where it's like the modern system is paying taxes. People who pay taxes are by and large the families who work hard to support, right? They support they pay the teacher salaries, they pay the doctors, NHS, whatever. So the structure of family is very critical, because family is a very, very powerful unit for spiritual progress. Not only for spiritual progress, but also support society as a whole. Don't forget, to hold society uphold, family is very important. However, there are many individuals who feel their intention is spiritual, and the time has come to be spiritual. And they can go to sannyasis. And of course, they have to be celibate and follow specific rules. But by and large, I would say that most people are not ready. So there's always be safe for every one sannyasi. There's happily always be hundreds of other people happy to have a family and have children. So it's not like everybody wants to become sannyasi. It's not something that comes to everybody. But to those who come, then we should actually allow them. Again, it's a question of freedom in Hinduism. Yes, we should allow them to do that. Sita?
Yeah, I think you've covered it beautifully. So, I mean, the idea of, there's 2 pathways. So you can choose to either become a monk, or you can choose to have a family. And the path of the family is the one that attracts most people. But in fact, I think that's probably one of the hardest ones, because there's so much that you're juggling with. You're trying to look after your family, you're looking after your children, you're looking after your elderly, you're looking after the community, at the same time paying your bills, paying your taxes. It's quite a lot to handle. And then the path of the sannyasi seems like a holiday. Comparison. They don't have to worry about any of that. I'm just joking, I'm making light of it. But as I said, essentially you have to choose what your heart tells you is the right way. And actually, if you look at the 4 sort of aims of Hinduism, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, in the householder stage, you actually fulfill 3 of the 4 aims of Hindu life: dharma, artha, and kama. And moksha, which is the most important one, is something that most people in a household will tend to forget in this modern day. And it's really important that we take that step away from worldly life at the right point in our life to focus on something higher. And if you have that urge to, focus your entire life on moksha, this idea that essentially you don't want to get bogged down in worldly life, then go for it. That's the jackpot at the end of the day.
Amazing. Now we're coming to the tail end of the session, but I'm going to extend it a few minutes. We've got a couple of questions which are interesting. We've got one from Ian Frido. I hope I pronounced the name correctly. He's having a comment. He's saying that we normally consider the human body as the peak of evolution. It's an amazing structure. It's a wonderful thing when you look at it as how it operates. But at the same time, when you consider some of the animals and insects, for example, they have amazing eyesight. They can breathe underwater. They're able to see, for example, very far away, like an eagle, or a bat can have like sonar and still be able to fly around in a dark cave. Why has the human body not taken on various different other things or abilities like these?
Okay, there's a very good answer for this. I mean, if you ever get a chance to read the book by Richard Dawkins called The Greatest Show on Earth of Evolution, the thing is this, we are humans, as per evolution, we are very lucky to actually survive as a species. Because the thing is this, that, when you take a powerful animal like, say, gorilla, you'll be surprised that just one step from gorilla to us will actually kill us. Even the strongest man on earth will be killed by a gorilla because all the energies that they eat, the food, goes into building their muscle. So humans didn't have that evolutionary advantage. So they were thinking on how to avoid being eaten or whatever. So they developed brain power, ironically, yes. But the brain needs so much energy that we will never be able to build the muscles of other animals or the other kind of sight. Because the eyesight, all the other senses, you need a lot of energy to build that kind of power. Like, when you take a, say, eagle you mentioned, or a bat, the sonar abilities they have, a lot of the food they eat, energy is used to fire that sonar ability. It's only for humans, ironically, that a lot of food we eat powers our brain. And the consequence of that was because we became very clever, we eventually ruled the world. I'm not saying a good thing or a bad thing, but quite often, although it's seen that they have powerful eyes, powerful sonar, actually the greatest benefit is the brain, which is what we have. And it just so happens that we had to fight so hard that evolution gave us a brain to survive. But now we have kind of used it the other way around. We used it to damage the environment, which is sad. But the point is this, that I think every animal, what it needs to survive, it has got. Eagles need to see prey from miles away. So they see, I think, about 10, 15 shades of they can actually analyze the infraviolet. We can't even see that, ultraviolet and infrared. They can actually see that in their eyes. They can analyze. We can't do that. So sort of amazing things when you look at I mean, there's one interesting example which I was looking at that, there's a snake in the viper snakes. They've got pits here, pit vipers. They actually use infrared. They don't actually, they can detect heat at night. They don't need eyesight. Even people that can see the animal and catch it. So the thing is that every animal has what it needs to survive. And that's how the world is created. So it's not a bad thing, I guess, to have the perfect human. I guess the most important thing that we have a brain to understand that, to try and ask the most fundamental question is, who are we? What are we? What's our divine nature? Luckily, we have those tools, and we should use those tools to find our true nature, I guess. That's the luckiest thing we have for us, is a brain to think like that. Sita?
Yeah, I think you've covered it amazingly. Like, it's amazing to see what, the different animals in the animal kingdom, what kind of amazing abilities that they have that we don't have. And it makes us think, if we are the pinnacle of evolution, why don't we have all of these amazing features? But I think the wonderful thing is that with humanity, we are not just a physical body. In the animal kingdom, it's very much all about your physical body. In the human kingdom, we step into a whole other realm, I think. And that's possibly why with the whole idea of reincarnation, the human population is ballooning. Everyone wants to be born as a human, and the animal population is dwindling, because in the level of the human kingdom, it's not just physical body. We actually are able to touch something ethereal in the human. We're able to reach out to the idea of spirit. And that's something incredible and beautiful. And at some kind of subconscious level, all of us are trying to reach out and aspire towards a more spiritual way of living, a way that we can be happy, a way that we can not have to rely on the material world so much. So I think that's the wonderful, magical thing about the human condition, is that we are that sort of bridge to the ethereal and the spiritual.
Fantastic. We were talking about temples and why they're so important and such a wonderful place. And Charmaine says, yes, temples are so pure and divine. And for some reason, temple prasad always tastes better. I agree with you. Temple prasad is the best. And MADLAB says that air is everywhere, but you need pressure to fill it into a tire. And just like that, God is everywhere, but a temple works in a similar way to focus your mind. So very well said. And I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you to all the viewers who've been contributing their questions, their thoughts, their comments. You've been very, very generous with your feedback, and we really appreciate that as well. The final question I've got today is from Ian Prideaux again, and he's asking, is chanting part of the team's practice here, and what are the benefits?
I mean, regarding team's practice, I'm not sure, but yes, sometimes I like to chant. If it's very melodious and very tuneful, then I do chant. I mean, sometimes I go to YouTube and I pick up anything. I'm particularly a big fan of Pandit Yashraj. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudeva. Sometimes I would just chant that with him because he's got a very beautiful voice. But yes, it helps me calm down. I mean, sometimes when I get stressed at work or something, or when I'm doing Hinduism class and I got a lot of stuff to do, I take a short break and then I listen to some of these chanting and kind of brings all the hormone levels down again. I can feel much calmer and start my work again. So yes, chanting, even in team is very good. If you do it together, it's quite nice as well. But I would say that by and large, it's really good for your personal development. Yeah, Ashita.
Yeah, not much more to add, really. I mean, the idea of chanting is to help discipline our mind and help us sort of focus on something higher. And it reminds me of what Sharada Devi used to say. She said that by constantly handling a rose, eventually your hand will also smell like a rose. So by constant remembrance of God, hopefully that divinity will rub off onto us too.
Amazing. Manish Bhai, do you have any final words on this?
No, I love to chant as and when I get a chance, but not in any particular regular manner.
Yep, same here. So as many of you may know, I am a sitting on the fence kind of an atheist. So chanting for me is not a regular thing, but I do enjoy it when I get the chance to do it as well. Like Vijay Bhai said, it does help to calm you down as well. So yes, from that point of view, it's a great practice as well. So folks, it's been a wonderful session today. Quite a diverse number of topics we covered. I enjoyed the focus topic of the day today, which was on the avatars. And I just wanted to say thank you to the team here who've been wonderful with their knowledge and helping to answer all the questions. Thank you very much for all you do. And I'll end the session by sharing a quote from Swami Vivekananda, as we always do. And today's quote is a nice, good old one, which is, arise, awake, and stop not until the goal is reached. With that, I wish you all a most wonderful weekend. If you're still celebrating Janmashtami over the weekend, have a great celebration. And we will look forward to seeing you next Saturday, 2 o'clock UK time as usual. Bye-bye for now.